many places.
Right.
So I love it. It's a great airplane. Very much 100% tested and continuing to upgrade here at Edwards Air Force Base in the 418th Flight Test Squadron. Okay, a three-parter today. Part one, we got a couple Warriors of the Week, which we're going to introduce here almost immediately. After that, we got security forces here to talk to us about their Pump the Brakes campaign. And also a reminder, schools are opening next week. And the school zones, therefore, become active. And there are some really, really important things that we never do in school zones, and they want to remind us all what those are and then what the consequences of violating those rules would be. And then, as always, on Friday, we'll spend our last about third of the time answering your questions, taking your comments, and if there aren't any, then Chief and I'm sure will have plenty of things that we can chat about that we don't get a chance to catch up on as well. So, with that in mind, I want to introduce, if you can switch over to these fine two Americans. We have with us, Alexis Holland, senior airman from the 412th Maintenance Squadron, and she works in the commander support staff there. You're like almost local, right? Like a stone's throw to the south in Lake Elsinore, I see here. Did you ask to come back to Edwards, or was it a random assignment?
Not at all. Is this on?
I don't know. You getting her? Okay, yeah, they're getting her.
Sorry.
That's okay. So what I remember about Lake Elsinore is there's a big skydiving location there in the east part of the greater Los Angeles area.
Mm-hmm, yeah, there's skydiving, and then right across the street from the skydiving place is a dairy that has like the best chocolate milk.
The best chocolate milk.
It is 100% hands down the best chocolate
Airman
milk.
Holland's recommendation for chocolate milk in Lake Elsinore.
It's
all right.
worth the
You heard it
drive.
here, folks. Yeah, I love it. Thanks for being here today. I want to hear a lot more about after we introduce your wingman there. I want to hear more about your hobbies of coffee. Right? So there are three words in here, but there's a hobby called coffee, and I really want to hear about that because you know what? I share that kinship with you. All right, so I appreciate that. All right, and sitting with you, and I am told, we cross paths all the time, but it's usually like at an event, and hey, this is the awesome person that's done all the marketing. I go, thank you, and then we have to both run away because you got folks to work with, and I'm getting pushed on stage. But it's Meka, right?
Yes.
That you go by?
Yes,
Yeah.
Meka.
Yeah, so Meka Lucio?
Yes, Lucio.
Lucio, okay. She is our FSS marketing director. I'll let you talk a little bit about what marketing is in a place like Edwards and a place like the 412th FSS. But switch back to those two ladies. She's from anyone?
I know.
New York City. So we got an LA New York City pairing on stage with us today, and I think that's a pretty cool example of what draws people here to Edwards and where we pull from in the larger Air Force. They're also Meka and Airman Holland are a great example of airmen, civilian and uniformed alike. So I'm glad you're here. Meka, your commander, when we offered her, hey, we got a Warrior of the Week slot, are you interested? We couldn't finish the sentence before she said yes, and it's Meka. And so that's how much Captain Moyer thinks of you, and I share her praise.
Thank
so
you, sir.
we're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So you've had a little bit of time to think about it there, Airman Holland. So tell me about your hobby of coffee. And then any other hobbies you want to as well, but go ahead.
All right. So yes, coffee. On the paper, it just says coffee, but I do love drinking coffee. I have it's an espresso machine and a coffee maker like in one, but I don't ever give myself enough time to make espresso in the morning. So I don't think I've ever used it, but like I buy everything for it, but I don't use it. So it just sits on my counter.
Sounds like a challenge.
It really is.
You got to challenge yourself to like.
Yes. Yeah,
test
I
out your
do.
espresso.
I do, but also if I make it wrong, then I just know I'm just going to go to Starbucks. So it's like, why even fail in the first place when I can just go to Starbucks?
Yeah, there was a period of time in our life pre-kids, so it's been 15 years ish. Where my wife and I totaled up the amount of money we were spending at places like Starbucks when we lived in the National Capital Region. And we're like, holy cow, for about a month of that, we could buy a nice espresso machine. And so we bought one and got okay proficient at it. But you know what I learned? I learned that I'm paying probably of the $6 for a Starbucks these days, I'm probably paying $4 of those dollars for the smash to my senses that happens when I walk through the front door.
Yeah.
You know,
The experience.
yeah, just you
the
walk in and
aroma.
you get whacked with that just coffee house sensation, aroma, smells, and you're talking to a guy that has a very subdued sense of smell, and it must be amazing for those of you that have normal smell, because it's really, really good for me. So I saw that, and I said, wow, she has a lot in common with me, because I have a hobby of coffee as well. Why don't you tell us a couple other things that may or may not be on the chart, but again, nothing super sensitive, but you know, what do you think about Edwards? How long have you been here?
So my husband and I have been at Edward. My husband's been here for 5 years, actually, and I've been here for 2 now. But we PCS in January. We're going to Holloman. So Edwards Part 2, I guess. That's what I've been told many times by a lot of people. But yeah, I've been here for 2 years. I've worked at the maintenance squadron the entire time. Hands down, probably one of the best squadrons out there. And that might be a little bit biased because I've only ever worked there.
That's okay.
But they take very good care of me, and then also working for group staff as well. It's kind of interesting because I sit in a position where I know more higher ranking members than I do members of lower ranks or like of the same rank as me. So it's interesting when I say like, oh yeah, why don't you set up a meeting with the SrA or with the superintendent? No, I don't want to do that. I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, they're just people too. But it's interesting to, like I said, be in that position and get to know that, like, you know, coming out of basic training, you think, oh my gosh, chiefs, seniors, higher ranking members, but in reality, they love coffee too. Or
That's right.
They do. Coffee is ironically a great icebreaker.
It really is. It really is.
So if I'm wrong here, it's going to be super embarrassing for me, which wouldn't be a first on the broadcast. But Nate Dixon, right? Your squadron director.
Yes.
Yeah. So real quick, you're out of basic training, you go through your tech school, and you land in a squadron that doesn't have a squadron commander, it has a squadron director, and he's a retired chief. So what was that? You're like, whoa. They didn't talk about that in basic.
No.
How was that for you? And I know Nate's a rock star, so you couldn't have landed in a better leader position.
Right.
But that had to have been a little bit, what?
It was like for sure culture shock because I think like, you know, in basic training, they're telling you, oh, you need to stand at the position of attention when the commander walks in. And I'm like, okay, but what do I do with a civilian? Like, you know, obviously I'm going to stand when he walks in, but you know, if he's handing out a decoration to me, do I salute or what do I do? But I've learned over time that it's really up to what Mr. Dixon wants, or any civilian leader or director in general, what they want and how they would prefer to do things. And most of the time, it's very much, you know, whatever you're comfortable with type thing.
Yeah, one of the things that, you said Holloman is Edwards Part 2. No offense to my counterpart at Holloman Air Force Base, but clearly you're going to an inferior installation. However, I can tell you that it will be another high desert. It does have an incredible mission set there. There'll also be some pretty cool mountains. Holloman actually has a test center organization there, the 704th Test Group, and they have the Western world's fastest location, which is the rocket sled track. There, it's a little over 8 miles long. I think it's 8 miles long, but they can get speeds up to Mach 8 on that, which is just crazy speeds on the sled track. And also, they have the Western world's quietest location, where they test strategic grade navigation systems as well. And a lot of people don't know it's there at the southern tip of the White Sands Missile Range. I think you're going to enjoy it. Certainly, Alamogordo is very different than the communities around here, but it has a charm all its own. And boy, the mountains around New Mexico are also really impressive. So I think you'll love living in the Southern Rockies. Chief, anything you want to throw out or get from Airman Holland there?
Sure. So, sir, you may recall either viewing it or I think you may have been there. Yeah, you were there. We had the broadcast for Senior Airman Below the Zone where Airman Holland was one of our BTZ winners. And so I have a question with regards to your goals. You said you're going to have to make a decision after PCS whether or not you stay enlisted or do you commission. And I wonder if your desire to commission is somewhat based on your experience here at Edwards working with higher ranking individuals, or could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. that sounded like a BTZ question, and it's giving me like flashbacks.
Flashback. You're giving her PTSD flashbacks.
You already
Chief.
made it, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, so my original plan was to get my degree in nursing and apply to the NECP program. But then, you know, life happened. We had a baby, and I kind of had to put school on hold. But, you know, now that our son is 1 now, I'm ready and feel confident enough to get back into those hardcore classes that I know is going to take a lot of time. And the reason I want to commission is because I do love helping people, especially like growing up in a family where I do have a couple of people in my family that are nurses that do love it. And yeah, it really just stems from wanting to help people. But I've also seen the impact of, you know, the chiefs that I've encountered throughout my time here that have really made a big impact on me, on other members, and I want to be that person as well. So I've been told a couple times now that, you know, I would make a really good high-ranking member, but of course I don't have the experience, I guess I could say, like to see that as of myself right now. Like if I look back and if I look forward in a couple of years, like I feel like I don't see myself as that because I don't think I've been through the hardships that another senior enlisted leader has, if that makes sense. Just because the way the Air Force is today versus how it was back then. But yeah, those are my goals. I don't know what I got to make a decision, but I just don't know. There's so many other things I want to do.
The great news there is I don't know if you realize this at the depth that it is actually, but you got a lot of runway in front of you before you have to make those choices. And one of the things I will. So I'm not going to poke my finger at you and give you an order there, but I will encourage you strongly, go talk to Colonel Isaac Francis. She's our med group commander. She is a nurse, and she can tell you what a career as a nurse in our Air Force has been like, and I think that will probably pull you closer to commissioning. And then I'll also remind you that 2 of our last 3 med group commanders here have been nurses. So there's a lot of upward mobility in the officer corps in the medical career fields as a nurse, in addition to it being just an awesome way to give to your community while you're also serving in uniform. So if that's where your interests lie, the Air Force would love to have you. And then just to make your challenging decision even more difficult, I know you're already talking to Chief Ward-Swanigan, and she can also tell you what it's like to be a senior enlisted leader in our Air Force and just how rewarding and just how satisfying and just how much, you know, with another 10-ish, 12-ish years of seasoning, you'll be prepared to do it. So you got a lot of great role models here and a lot of people that would love to talk to you and see those conversations with you. And I really like people with options. I know that they're always tough, but I'm glad you have options, and I'm glad you continue to build options for yourself. Mm-hmm. So good on you. And thanks for sharing your time with us. Congrats on the little one.
Thank you.
Increasing world population with great people is always very pleasing to me. So well done. And I also have a lot near and dear to my heart, male families too, because we are that with going on 50 years of service in our household. So I hope you can both figure out a way to stay serving. All right. We're going to pivot to Meka. Meka, I think the last event we were in person at was probably like Santa's arrival Christmas thing, or was it something else that we were on stage at together?
I feel like it was the STEM, the DoD Starbase STEM event. I think that was the last one.
Yeah,
back in April.
The open house, STEM open house?
Yes.
Okay. Were you there as a parent, or were you there in your FSS role?
I was volunteering, actually.
Ah, okay. So that's why you were sleeping in under the radar, and I'm not putting that together. Okay. Well, thanks for volunteering with Starbase. That is another fantastic organization of, low density, high demand superstars. A team of 3 taking care of thousands and thousands of third graders in a nationally renowned program. But you are a nationally renowned program in and of yourself in the FSS marketing shop. I look at this small list that Captain Moyer put together, and you're pushing like $100,000 in funds generated in support of the air show, and we're still 2 months out. So that's phenomenal. I do want to give you an opportunity to talk to what your role is in the upcoming open house, and really if somebody wants to get involved, or how would they get their wares or get their private organization or something like that a space or a spot at the open house. I'd like you to talk about that real fast. And then, I would also like to hear how did you get here from New York City?
Wow, okay. So as far as the air show, our focus is supporting the FSS MWR elements. We support those activities with commercial sponsorship from local partners and national partners. We do have a commercial sponsorship coordinator, Miss Emily Thornburg, and she is also our marketing assistant. She is the point of contact and can be reached at 412sponsorship@gmail.com. For anyone interested in supporting the air show, we do still have a need, although we have garnered close to $100,000. Looks like we're going to probably exceed that amount. But we are still taking contributions, and in exchange for those contributions, we can give promotional consideration. Organizations that are interested in supporting on the private side, we are calling for volunteers, and there are opportunities through our master concessionaire to sell wares, merchandise, swag, and other items that way. And you can contact myself, or you can also contact Ms. Thornburg, and we can point you in the right direction. Again, that's at 412sponsorship@gmail.com, and we can get you in touch with the right points of contact for any private organizations that are interested in either volunteering or supporting the air show by, selling merchandise.
So what we're going to do is, I'm sure the guys in the studio, and they're like, he didn't ask us for this before we went on air, but I'm sure they can find something that is air show related that we can pop up on the screen before the end of the broadcast. And we'll start hitting the audience with that every week. And then if we can add a sponsorship thing, hey, if you're interested in a spot, contact these people too. We'll get that on in future broadcasts as well. A lot of folks don't realize it's been, I think it was 2009. Meka, I think you can back me up on that. 2009 was the last time we had an open house at Edwards. Our plan was to do it on a 10-year center and have one in 2019. And it got Rolexed a year into 2020. Like, what could possibly be the difference between October of 19 and October of 20? Said my predecessor, and then the world changed. And so it's delayed, at least the big one is delayed by another couple years to 2022. I think we successfully had our hybrid air show, very successfully had that in 2020 to anchor the date, but it'll be a large open house. Friday, ID card holders only. It's a STEM day. It'll kind of be the warm-up for everyone. It's I think that's the arrival show for the Thunderbirds on Friday. If not, it's Thursday, but the Thunderbirds will be flying on Friday. And then the open house will be Saturday and Sunday. The weekend, I think it's the weekend after Columbus Day, but I can't remember the dates off the top of my nugget.
Correct.
And so it's a 2-day weekend. But what folks don't realize that Meka and her team can get to you or for you is if you have a brand or a name or an organization or something that you would like to take advantage of we're conservatively expecting tens of thousands of people to be here on Saturday and Sunday and potentially into the 6 figures total. That's a lot of visibility that Team Edwards and Team Takata and the air show team, the open house team, and the FSS marketing team can provide to you or for any size organization or business. And it's totally legit and above the board. Talk to FSS about how you get there. There is a master concessionaire, so they have some rules that we can apply, but there's plenty of room and plenty of space within that. Meka, anything you want to correct me on that? And then answer how did you get from New York City to here?
All of that was actually perfect. And as far as I ended up here from New York City, my husband was in the Navy, active duty. He did 20 years, and his last assignment was recruiting for the LA County region, and Edwards was the closest installation to his office. We just weren't really familiar with the area. We went through the school liaison to find recommendations on schools in the area, and so it was just kind of like the perfect location for us. So we had the opportunity to live on the base for 3 years up until his retirement from the Navy. And once he retired, we moved off the base, purchased in the area. I have students that attend the schools, and one that graduated, one that's about to graduate, and one that's starting kindergarten. And so that's kind of how we ended up here. And I ended up, going back in from working from home. Pre-pandemic, I worked from home for an organization, and I was just looking for other opportunities just to kind of expand in the marketing realm. Great timing, and I applied and ended up working on the base. So I ended up spending more time here than there. But I met my husband when we were in college. I was in college, and he was a young seaman, and we just been together going on 20 years next week.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Chief?
Yeah, congratulations. No, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Wow, what a story. Thank you for sharing that.
I'll tell you folks, Meka's, I didn't know this before before you did, but I did not know Meka's family included folks that were students at New York Joint Unified School District. Meka, they're still enrolled there, or they're going to be enrolled there next year?
Yes, I have one student that is about to be a senior at Desert, senior high school, and I have my littlest who had been attending the CDC since he was about 18 months old, is now going to be attending Bailey as a kindergartner.
Yeah, so
And
this
my
is
daughter.
totally off topic, but as a parent, what do you think about the changes, and I'm being neutral in my word there, that you've observed the last 4 to 5 years in the schools physically?
Well, I would definitely have to say that the changes have been phenomenal. When we arrived in 2016, we saw the older building, especially the older buildings. There were several of them along the boulevard there. And so we were able to see it being built from the ground up over time. So it's really exciting to have been a part of that and to have my students be a part of the legacy that Edwards is creating here. And I feel like it's just been great for them, a great opportunity for them just to adjust and get planted within the community. If it wasn't for the schools, they were able to get involved in extracurricular activities. We were able to grow our network coming here. We didn't have a lot of family. We didn't have any family. Actually, it was just kind of us. So we were able to expand by making friends and meeting other families through the schools and also through MWR programs, which is why I'm just a huge advocate for FSS because it really helped us transition and adjust and get through living in a new place that was vastly different than where we came from.
Yeah, that's really cool. So the ribbon cutting ceremony for the entire project, it's depending how you run the numbers, it's somewhere between 150 and 160 $million massive construction. And there are some buildings that were renovated, but gosh, Chief, it's hard to call it a renovation. They literally ripped it down to the cinder block walls, replaced some of the concrete slab underneath, and down to the rafters and the ceilings, and then rebuilt from there. And those are the ones that remained. Everything else was demolished and then fresh built. It is now a truly connected campus. A lot of the buildings or facilities are shared amongst different ages and grades, not necessarily at the same time. Like, we're not going to put TK with seniors in high school in the library at the same time, although that would be very comical, I think, watching 17 and 18-year-olds around 4-year-olds. So the school district, I think, did a really solid job of working with their design team of putting together the campus, and then because they were in it for the long haul, the materials and the designs and stuff like that should be long outlast the multi-decade expectation of facilities. Nicest gym that I have been in high school gym especially, in a very long time, maybe ever, to include locker rooms. Their performing arts facility is literally the best one I've ever been in a high school. And your up-and-coming senior has got to be super excited to be going to that year of school there, and the one that just graduated is probably super bummed that they weren't the number 2 kid, right, because they didn't get to be in the brand new high school. But they did get graduation, right, in the performing arts center. So that's great, and I'm glad to hear that. It's always good to meet a member that has lived at the best zip code in the Air Force, 93523. Thank your husband for his service. I will forgive him for picking the second best service in the Department of Defense, but nobody's perfect. All right, Meka, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you're on the team. Thanks in advance for all the work you're going to do for the open house going forward. And I'm going to give one last plug for anything that you want to contribute, even if it's just a critique of the schools. I know the superintendent of the school district and I both care deeply about the schools, and if there's something we can do to make it better, parents like you with students like yours are really the best source of information, and we desperately want that. So let us have it. All right, ladies, you're our Warriors of the Week. I could not be more proud of the two of you. Thank you very much for your time on a Friday afternoon. Enjoy your weekends, and continue to be safe.
Airman Holland practiced that espresso.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I'm going camping this weekend, and
Okay.
I'm not going to have time, but I will not promise that I will do it on Monday. I will try. But
Yeah, when you can perfectly steam the milk, I think you've got it. But until then, that was my challenge. I had a hard time reliably steaming the milk. All right. Well, thank you, ladies. Again,
Thank you
enjoy
so
your Friday.
much.
All right. While they're swapping out with a couple defenders, let me foot stomp a couple things that are big next week. We have the ribbon cutting ceremony at the school on Tuesday. You're going to see he's not an alum, but he did attend high school there. You're going to see a guy that happens to be my next door neighbor there, and he's told me that he's going to wear his football jersey
Oh, wow.
at the ceremony. So I'm looking forward to seeing him dressed down in his old purple, and it's probably I don't know if it's purple and white or purple and black jersey there, but that'll be pretty neat to see General Dirteen there. We have a couple folks traveling in from off the base and from as far away as Washington, D.C. to congratulate the school district really on a great project. Like many massive construction projects, they don't deliver precisely on time, but their objective was to be up and ready for occupancy when school starts, and it starts on the 11th. So next Thursday is the first day of school, and Tuesday is the ribbon cutting. Sounds like pretty good timing to me. And there'll probably be a few things they have to clean up or dust off as they get into the first few weeks of school, but well done for that in a three-phase approach. So those are some big events going on next week. And the reason that we have defenders here in the studio with us now, so if you could pan over to them, is that, yes, school starts next week. And that means school zones are active again on Edwards Air Force Base. So, gentlemen, if you would quickly introduce yourself and then take it from there on the school zones and remind everybody what that means.
Yes, sir. I'm Staff Sergeant Coleman with the 412 Security Forces. I work with police services over there. And next to me is...
I'm Senior Master Sergeant Crawford. I'm Operations Superintendent for the 412 Security Forces Squadron.
And basically what the school zone insight is, with the school back in session and everything, we're really going to be hitting these areas. There's no doubt about it. There's no reason to hide it either. It is our goal and priority to make sure that the dependents on base are protected within the school zones and housing areas. If you look at some of the customer service guides the Security Forces puts out, you'll notice that on the point system here with the school zone, you'll see that the first offense is up to a 30-day suspension decided by the MSG commander. It's no joke, and this is for school zones and housing. So we're really going to be focusing on that. August 11th is when school starts, so just be prepared for that.
Yeah, so next Thursday, August 11th, the school zones do impact a lot of the main thoroughfares through the base, and in the zip code 93523. You're going to see a lot of parents, a lot of folks in uniform, a lot of defenders. Much of the installation senior leadership is going to be out there as well, welcoming back the kids, welcoming back the parents, helping them find their way to the new schools, because the high school is changing locations again. The elementary schools are where they were last year, but always just a joyous, little bit chaotic, but joyous first day of school here at the on-base school here, Muir Joint Unified School District. But big reminder that school zones are active, and they're active before and after school. Can you go back to the Pump the Brakes slide for me? This is not information that you're just going to find here on this broadcast. This is information that hangs publicly, and basically what it is down the left side. Those are the points on your driver's license. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen. That is published through the state of California. So that's what those points are. And then the offense, right? So how many over the speed limit are you? And the last one there at the bottom is really the one we're really want to pound home in this broadcast today. It doesn't matter in a school zone how many over the speed limit you are. It's 6 points. And then the offenses. Now the points are on your civilian driver's license. The offenses are, if you will, the consequences of that are things that we enforce or impose on the base. For example, if you are written a ticket for speeding 1 mile an hour over on a school zone, the guidance is, at the discretion of the MSG commander, Colonel Jared Blecker, is a 30-day suspension of your privileges of driving on the base. That's a non-trivial thing. And if you do it again, you can expect it to be significantly more. If you look at the other second offenses, they're typically a 1 year-ish time frame for the 30-day and then 1 year. And depending on how egregious the first one or the second one is, it could be a lot longer than that. Let me also remind everybody that there's also no tolerance, zero tolerance for non-hands-free cell phone use. That will also be very, very, very strictly enforced in school zones with kids present. And so those are the foot stumps for the school zones there in specific. But in general, Senior, if you want to talk to what our tolerances are and what kind of buffers do you give people on the rest of the installation?
Yes, sir. On that note, for speeding in the school zone and base housing, like you were saying, there's no buffer. If there's children present, walking around, pickup times, drop-off times, the 1 mile per hour over can cause significant harm to anybody trying to cross the street if they're not paying attention, if they're utilizing their cell phone, not on a hands-free device. So really focusing on the school zone and housing, 1 mile per hour over will get you a 30-day suspension. Your second offense will be decided by Colonel Bletcher. So we're really emphasizing those zones right now once we get back to school and focusing on those areas where our dependents are and our base populace spends majority of their time dropping off kids, picking up kids, visiting them at lunch in those areas. So we're really going to increase our presence patrols over there. Myself and Sergeant Coleman, along with the rest of the operations team, have came up with some selectives that we're going to be enforcing in that areas. So you're going to see a lot more presence patrols, not just at the beginning of school, but throughout the remainder of the school year.
Yeah, so that's a great emphasis. There's a good question on the screen right now, which I'll get to here in a second, but I'll bridge with this. Teammates, leaders all, anybody hearing my voice either live or rebroadcast, it is not the security forces squadron responsibility only. It's not only their responsibility to enforce proper behavior on the base, be that cell phone use or speed limits. Candidly, it's all of our responsibilities. It's our community, right? It isn't just mine or just the defenders or just chiefs. It's all of ours. And the better that we as a community comply with the rules in place, the more options that the folks that adjust those rules get to make it better for everyone. And the more abuse we see of those rules, the less flexibility we give the decision makers to make it better for everyone. I think a quintessential example is a speed limit, right? So I'm going to pivot right now to the question on the screen, and the question is, can we raise the speed limit on Rosemont Boulevard to 75 miles an hour? Well, the answer to that question is yes, we can. And in fact, the we is spelled me, right? I could say to the civil engineering group, run me a quick traffic safety thing, calculate the risk, and if that risk is acceptable, I could say make it happen. You know what, folks? I'm not going to do it. And the reason I'm not going to do it is that you and a lot of folks that you watch drive in and out the gate every day above the posted speed limit of 65 miles an hour don't comply with the posted speed limit today. So if we raised it to 70 or 75, what gives me confidence? What gives the defenders confidence? What gives the dependents that ride in the cars in and out that gate the confidence that cars are not going to be going well above that new posted speed limit? And that's the reason, that is solely the reason, while the speed limits out the south gate and the speed limits out the west gate are unlikely to change until we collectively all behave better and enforce it as a community. It isn't just command's responsibility. It isn't just the defender's responsibility. It's your responsibility to do the right thing, and it's also your responsibility to be a good community member. You know, it's like I grew up in an area of the country where there were neighborhood watch signs everywhere. And it was well understood that, it was well before cell phones, because I'm that old. But, everybody had their head on a swivel. And if they saw something weird, they weren't just going to call the police. They were going to actually do what they could to minimize or mitigate the damage. That same type of mentality exists here on 93523 in our community, but it also exists on the base writ large. And if we all enforce that, we'll all benefit from it. And one great way we could benefit from it, and I'm very willing to do it, is increase speed limits out the west gate and on the south base road. But I'll tell you, folks, it is really, 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 really disappointing, and that's a kind word to me, when I am driving out, for example, last Friday, driving in my POV southbound on Lancaster Boulevard inside the gate with my cruise control literally set at 55 miles an hour, which is the posted speed limit, and I get passed not once, but twice. and the second car that passed me passed the car that had just passed me, right? So clearly those people are going well over the speed limit. The defenders at the south gate did an exceptional job of catching those two before they left the installation, and I had a conversation with those two drivers explaining that that's not how we behave on base. They were both very apologetic, and I asked them, as I'm asking you today, pay that forward, right? Let's make this a community thing, and if we all do it, we can all benefit from it. That's one of the roads where I think there's an option or a potential to increase the speed limit to a little bit, but only if I am really confident people are actually going to drive that limit. And it is not the defenders to enforce that. It is ours collectively as a community to enforce that. So, Senior, with that as your tee up, anything else you want to foot stomp or emphasize on that?
Yeah, it's important for the community overall to make sure we're all doing our part to stop and enforce the laws on base. We are the defenders on the base. It is our responsibility, but as a whole, it's everybody's responsibility to enforce the laws. If you see it, stop it. Bring it up, like you said, sir. Yeah,
it's the classic see something, say something. If you see a car blow by you and you have a car description and you can remember the license plate number, hand that off to the defender at the gate when you get there, right? They will happily capture it down, write it in the blotter, and guess what? We can figure out who owns that car and potentially where that person works or lives on the base, and we can have a community conversation with that member. But that requires all of us to see something, say something, and we would all dramatically benefit from that. So I think there's a lot of greatness there. Another thing, Senior, I'll give you a softball question here. Hey, after I leave the guard shack, right, back to normal rules, right? That's totally fair game, and you can do whatever you want. South of Southgate and west of Westgate, right? Totally good.
No, sir.
Normal California rules apply.
They do, sir, but we still have to enforce those laws on and off the installation.
Yeah.
To be good stewards, if you're doing it on base, you're going to do it off base. If you're not doing it on base, you're not doing it off base.
So the point in the question and the senior's response there is, when you're on base, you're on base. It doesn't matter if you're inside the gate or not. So when you pass the wall that says "Welcome to Edwards Air Force Base" or "Welcome to Air Force Plant 42," even if you haven't passed through a guard shack yet, you are on property that is patrolled and with laws enforced by defenders. And the expectation of the installation command team is that you drive the posted speed limit and you comply with all traffic laws. And that if there's a different expectation for the legal authorities outside the gate or off those signs, then well, that's up to those enforcement authorities to do as they deem appropriate. But inside the walls, so to speak, even if you're outside the gates, it's still drive the posted speed limit, and that applies out the north gate, which is a real short stretch. But I see a lot of abuse outside the south gate, especially. And there's not a lot. There's occasionally some stuff we see outside the west gate. Senior, I remember some pretty eye-popping speeds that I've seen in the blotter for folks on Rosamond Boulevard, and those are some pretty harsh penalties. Talk to me about real quick after you leave the south gate and turn left, you're on Mercury Boulevard. What jurisdiction applies there?
Sorry, Coleman.
Yes. So when you take a left onto Mercury Boulevard, you're actually on exclusive property. So basically, we have full control there. When you speed there, the infraction is treated the military way, and we use, California law to administer the citations there. But you receive an actual 1805, which is going to be your California ticket, which is going to give you an actual how would you say it? The money charge. Monetary charge. So you'll get the monetary charge as well as your points. So it'll be on top of that.
Yeah, and the rules that we applied, and can you push back the pump the brakes chart? The right side of that chart also applies even if you're not inside the gates. So Mercury Boulevard is a great example, and then the areas we've already talked about outside the south gate and outside the west gate, and for that small stretch outside the north gate as well. Defenders, anything else you want to foot stomp on the Pump the Brakes campaign while you got the audience here, and any comments or questions for Chief or I?
Yes, sir. I would just like to kind of clear the air with a misconception of that an officer is pulling me over because of he's bored or there's something that he's just picky about this situation. It is not that. The reason we pull over people and base populace is because that officer more than likely has seen the impact of what speeding does. They've been to a fatality crash. They've gone and seen what the families have gone through when an accident occurred. It's not because we're trying to get people, it's nothing like that. It is simply the fact that we know the impact and we're trying to keep the base safe.
Yeah, the defenders are doing their job because they care about all of us and because they know the real impact of what can happen when people aren't driving in a safe manner. I'll tell you, one of the places that gives me the most stress as the installation commander is Fitzgerald Boulevard, about 30 minutes before sunset. That is a really, really, really dangerous part of this installation, not necessarily because people are driving bad, but because of the sun angles and the way it's a boulevard style with a lot of foot traffic there. It's a really dangerous place. Early in my command tour this trip at Edwards, as I was driving back to my house, I came upon a scene, a vehicular pedestrian strike there. The lady fortunately was driving the speed limit, which right there by the CDC is 25 miles an hour, and she didn't see somebody that was running. Happened to be an active duty Marine, and he literally went over her car and was still on the pavement when I arrived. One of the flight chiefs, I will not name his name, but he was the on-scene commander or the incident commander when I arrived, and I offered help, and he's like, "No, sir." And I could tell that every defender there was pretty shaken because all of us run, right? And sometimes we run on roads, and that Marine was just out for his PT. The driver just literally didn't see him, and he took the brunt of it. He lived. I don't know how bad his injuries were, but she was really, really, really shaken up, and I could see that it affected the defenders on the scene that day too. It is not unprecedented for a vehicle to strike a pedestrian and kill that pedestrian on Edwards. Knock on wood, that is a very rare occurrence, but I've been around this space when that has happened, and so we take that very seriously. Fitzgerald is one of those places. School zones are one of those places, and if we all do the right thing all the time, we're good to go. Anything else, gents, that you want to throw at us or get from us before we wish you a great Friday?
No, sir, thank you.
No, sir. Just thank you and the chief for having us here. And like Sergeant Coleman said, we're here for the safety of the base populace. We're not here to pull people over and make you mad. We actually want to have a safe environment for everybody that's here.
Yeah, I agree, and that is my wish as well. So there's thanks, guys. Have a great Friday. I appreciate what you do. Every time I have a couple extra minutes, I love chatting with you, but I know that you're not always interested in a super long conversation, but I love it. I've had a great experience every time I'm at the gates or I see somebody on patrol, and I super appreciate what you do. All right, with that, I'll answer this question on the pump the brakes item, and then we'll get into the last 15 minutes or so here for your questions, comments, and anything else. So the question on the chart now is, will that pump the brakes slide be distributed through PA emails? It's a great opportunity for us to tell you that the PA blast emails are actually on a glide slope to sunset. We anticipate that in the not too distant future, all that information is going to move primarily to the app, and it'll be a lot less email centric. And so yes, we can communicate via those. Emails will still go out, but we're pivoting to the app. And that chart is actually taken from the Security Forces Customer Service Guide, which is publicly available. And I don't have the exact URL, but I bet somebody could look that up in the broadcast booth, and we can show the audience now where that lives. But it is publicly available, and we can probably also hang that for a little while as well. And you can rewatch the broadcast and take a screenshot or something like that as well. But that's it. It's out and available. The Customer Service Guide from Security Forces also answers a lot of other questions like, how do I sponsor somebody on the base? What is trusted traveler? Those kinds of things. How do I get a long-term visitor's pass? Where do I go for that? Those kinds of things. Lots of basic questions. What are the hours, the published hours at the gates and at the VCC and things like that. So pretty good guide, relatively quick read, and it is around and available. So I think we hit that one. All right, Chief. It's the orange thing on my face question.
Yes, sir, it is. Shall I read it?
Yeah, I'll let you. You can either read it or take it or both.
Is the mask mandate going to continue on Edwards Air Force Base when LA County and Kern County don't follow the mask mandate?
So I would love, so one of the things I like about this town hall format, Chief, is that we are in a reliable place at a reliable time on a reliable day, every duty day, Friday at 1300, for people to show up and ask questions that they have. one of the disappointing things about it being virtual is that if somebody were to, and this is a literal thing that happened to me last night. I was waiting for my pizza or to pick up pizza at Domino's, and somebody there in civilian attire came up to me and said basically, not the exact same question, but a similar question, like, sir, how long do you anticipate we're going to be in masks? And it allowed me to have a dialogue with that person. And to whoever asked this question, I would love to have a dialogue with you on this topic. So the mandate and the source of the mandate, that is, I guess, a potential for Kern County, LA County, and there's a third one that we are in, and that's San Bernardino County, are different sources. So the source of the mandate requirement is not my decision. It's a Department of Defense policy that is signed out by the SecDef or one of the undersecretaries of defense that says, very plain English, when the local community, i.e. the county COVID level is high, masks are required. Period, dot, end of story, indoors, right? There are exceptions to that, and the exceptions are published in that same guidance. It hangs on our installation command directive. I think it's ICD 19, don't quote me on that number, but it is hanging. You can get it through your unit control center, and that applies to all mission partners too, not just 412 testing units. It is around and available. You can also Google that, mask mandate DOD. It was updated in early 2022. So the policy directive that applies on all military installations, not just Edwards, is that when your local community COVID risk is high, it's masks. Done. Over. End of discussion. That's the rule. It's a legal order, and we follow lawful legal orders for those appointed over us. It's in our oath. It's what we do in the military, and it's what we do on military installations. So it is, now let's talk to the counties and their mask mandates, or lack thereof. I'm interested in, and I'm informed by what LA County, Kern County, and San Bernardino County choose to do, but in no way, shape, or form am I bound by it. And I challenge anyone to go do the research and look at the times when there's been a mismatch between what especially LA County is requiring of folks and what we required of folks at Edwards, where I had discretion. Challenge you to come up with more than a couple fingers full of times where on base we were more restrictive, where I had a choice, than LA County was in the last 2.5 years. I think that number is very, very, very small, and where I get opportunities, and our numbers and our data support it, I tend to give us the benefit of the doubt here because of our population density being very low, good airflow. We have people that comply with rules overall more so than in a lot of the outside the gate communities and things like that. So I think the question is interesting, and I'd love to have a dialogue, but it's a mismatch of a couple things. The fact that the counties are politically choosing to ignore CDC and California Department of Health guidance, right? And that's a political decision the counties are making. And the fact that the Department of Defense has mandated that inside, on base, when the community COVID level is high, you must wear a mask. Those are not the same thing. So to conflate the two is missing the topic and really missing the point behind the policies for both. So
and I would note note as well that on the app, when you click on the HP Con, it takes you to the ICD, and then it also has the references listed at the top that are hyperlinked to talk through some of those mandates and some of the supporting guidance that we use when you're making those decisions.
yeah, absolutely. And I tell you, one of the things that's really great about what's there, and it's been at the same URL, right? It's on the app. It's also on the edwards.af.mil/coronavirus page. And you can hyperlink to there. If you find anything that's outdated or something that you have a question on, let us know. 707-412-8922 is a great place to let us know if you see something that's a little off or that we could update. It's been a very consistent location to get the information. It's also, I think we believe, holistic in, do I wear a mask indoors 100% of the time I am indoors on the base? You know what, Chief? I don't. And you know when I don't wear my mask? When a mask mandate is required? I don't wear it in the times where the mask policy says you don't have to wear a mask in these circumstances. And I think that list is pretty mature right now. So for example, Chief and I both live on base. You know, when I'm home and I'm in my residence, that's inside on a military installation, but I don't wear my mask when I'm at home, right? I also drink, So in this studio today, I've had a drink of water, and I didn't drink through my orange. I wonder how that would taste, but I'm not going to try. And I also eat, right? Sometimes I'll eat at my desk. There are other reasons why and other ages and places and things that we comply with, but knowing the details of the policy there are super important. And if you have any question on what those policies are, let me know. Another thing that I want to foot stomp real quick, since the person brought it up, is that not all masks are the same. I encourage you to go back. It was, I want to say 3 weeks ago, where we went through the history of masks real fast, right? So I don't have them with me today, unfortunately. I thought they were great visual aids, but ICD-19 requires you to wear a mask that has real value, not that some masks have no value, but masks that have real value. So you'll note the ones that Chief and I are wearing right now are both KN95s. It's 95, not KN100, which I think you pointed out in a forum recently, in that it's not perfect, but it is really good. If you don't have access to a KN95 or equivalent, a surgical mask is an appropriate substitute. I think they're not as durable, and they're certainly not as protective for the wearer as a KN95 or equivalent. But those are the only two that comply with the on Edwards Air Force Base requirement, and that was my decision, because the prior cloth ones, they don't fit well enough. It's now aerosolized. The virus is aerosolized enough that it's going to escape anyway. The ones that you can see through are an actual joke. Balaclavas that are synthetic in nature and very thin also have very limited value, and they're basically just having something over your face to minimally comply with the rule, but not complying with the intent of the rule. And so that's just, we're better than that. And this to me is at its core a risk to mission issue now. And the risk to mission is risk to losing a member of our community's contributions for a period of up to 10 days, and maybe more if they have a severe case of COVID. So it's a risk to mission in a risk to person thing that we're trying to prevent. We wear KN95s to prevent inhalation risk. If you are wearing the surgical mask, your inhalation protection is your exhalation catch is probably pretty good, and the exhalation catch is really good for KN95s. And I can riff on this for a long time, as any of you that have been to these broadcasts or know me on. Let me give you one last piece of data on COVID and mask wear. The most infectious disease, I think is the right term, prior to COVID, known to man, is measles. It has an R0 ratio of 18. And what that means is in a population with no immunity, so folks that haven't been vaccinated or haven't previously recovered from measles, that every one person that gets measles, 18 more will get infected. And then those 18 will infect 18 more. And it will go asymptotic, geometric really fast. That is the most contagious thing prior to COVID that we had experienced as humans. Early COVID was like a 2.5, maybe 3 to 1 ratio. Delta got into the 6-ish range, 6 to 1. Early Omicron and some data sets was 20. Other data sets were in the mid-teens. We're thinking it was probably a little less than 18. But the current variant, BA4, BA5 of Omicron, is between 18 and 19 are not value. So it is as or more infectious than the most contagious and infectious thing that humankind has dealt with as an enemy. And that's why fighting this virus remains one of our combat fronts in war every day. And this is a super simple way to fight that risk to mission and fight that enemy. Just like putting on your seatbelt, just like not driving when you're drunk, just like looking both ways before you cross the street, just like wearing light reflective gear when you're outside walking or running at night. And I can go on and on and on about the relatively common sense and very trivially invasive things that you do to protect you and reduce risk to you and by extrapolation to the mission because of the contributions you make to our mission. And a good quality mask, a KN95 or equivalent, is just one of those things. So there's my update on that question. So because you can't just have one pandemic at a time, right? I guess is the next question, Chief. You want to go ahead and hit that one?
What is Edwards Air Force Base plan regarding monkeypox?
So our plan regarding monkeypox is fill in the blank anything that's a contagious, potentially pandemic disease. Our public health has a plan and execution against anything. We exercised recently to a hypothetical threat that we called Ebolacron. So it was a hypothetical exercise where we had something as contagious as Omicron and as deadly as Ebola. So 90% kill ratio and transmissibility of measles combined. And that was a challenging exercise scenario where public health got to execute their plan, and then we had to continue to execute at a lower rate. We had to continue to show that we could execute mission. We did so very well. So that is our plan for anything, for monkeypox in specific. Right now, the public health posture for monkeypox is that we have a pretty good understanding of what risk factors are allied and arranged with transmissibility of it. Its transmissibility is much, much, much less than anything we're talking about with COVID. It is not an aerosolized transmission. It is by contact, and I guess I saw something earlier today that maybe it has a residual on surfaces, but that's highly doubtful, and we're not thinking that's super possible yet, but science will show that. We're approaching 10,000 cases in the United States, somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 cases in the United States. And right now, we are leaning heavily on our community partners for vaccinations. So if you are interested in a monkeypox vaccination, you won't find one on base at Edwards. You need to go into the community and look for vaccination locations there for monkeypox. The good news about monkeypox and the base so far is that the case rates are very low. I can't reveal exact numbers here, but they are very low, and our clinics and our public health team are very much attuned and looking out for it. So that's where we sit today. That's a little bit deja vu-ish for me, frankly, because that was kind of what I said in early 2020 about this thing that is, still with us 2.5 years later. I'm not sure exactly how monkeypox is gonna move and flow, but it's so far I'm satisfied that our plan is solid. I am confident that our local community public health partners have solid plans and they're executing those. Much like COVID early, where we didn't have a vaccine, this time we do have a vaccine, but we just don't have the production numbers up for anybody that may want one. I think that is going to correct much faster than it did for COVID, and they're traditionally developed vaccines that will become readily available quite soon. So I'm watching it, but I'm not doing a crisis action team recall on that yet. So conveniently timed no questions as we hit the 1 hour mark. Chief, I haven't given you a chance to take a free shot with me online in a long time, so I'll give you that opportunity now. Yeah.
I talk to you so often that I don't know that I have anything I haven't already thrown at you.
So I don't have any questions, Dee, that I want to hit you with either on the broadcast today. I do want to foot stomp a few things that really strike me about this place, this base, and our mission. I got to introduce our new Vice Wing Commander to different forums the last couple weeks. Colonel Matt Kit Kaspers is here. He and all of Team Kaspers successfully moved in over the month of July. He is massively and rapidly getting up to speed. He's a first. He's another Edwards first. And I'll leave it for a question for the audience for next week. If you can tell me, Kit Kaspers as our Vice Wing Commander, what first is he accomplishing in that position, I'll give you a bonus, and we'll talk about what that bonus is later. But he's a first, and I'm thrilled to have him. I've worked with him a couple times in the past. I am enjoying working with him thus far. His learning curve is very steep, and he's climbing the hill quite well. You'll see him at our future broadcasts, and you've seen him at places already. Immersions are moving along. He very handily took care of our exercise yesterday, running the crisis action team and running and giving information and providing support to the EOC, while I was in exercise land on a cruise ship out in the middle of the Pacific with no cell coverage. So unfortunately, I was unable to help, but the team did very well yesterday.
He's a prime example of hit the ground running.
Absolutely, yep. And then, just because he couldn't do enough in one day, he also personally handled all the command and control for our power outage that happened last night on the base as well. So he's doing awesome. I know you're going to enjoy working with him and for him just as much as I do. But we had a newcomers yesterday, and one of the things that it hits me every single time I do newcomers, there's a lot of things that hit me. One of them is, it's really imperative that you remember and we all consider that we're fighting 4 combat fronts here at one time, and I'll just quickly go through those again. We're building ready airmen today to deploy today to fight tonight, and that's our first combat front. Our second combat front we're fighting in is we are all fighting in cyber. My phones are in the studio, but not on my person right now. I'm aware of what our enemies are trying to do to us in cyber. So anytime you're touching a device or using a network, assume that your enemies are watching you, and your enemies may not be other nation states. Your enemies may be criminals, right? And they can cause just as much disruption to your life and to our mission as an actual nation state enemy can. So cyber's super important. Cyber hygiene's super important. And if something looks a little weird or is too good to be true, boy, you should be very, very careful and very, very leery about that, and confirm that in another way. But that's a way that we are all fighting in cyber all the time. The base has an additional defensive capability that we are employing and doing quite well in, and your comm squadron does a great job on the front line there, but it takes all of us. Just like the defenders on the front line we talked about in the broadcast today, but it takes all of us. The third combat front we're fighting in, we've talked about a lot in this broadcast and a lot of these broadcasts over the 2.5 years, and that's fighting the virus and normalizing in what is now an endemic environment, and trying to protect against risk to mission due to the virus. And then the fourth combat front we're in is kind of our banner mission, and that's the future fight, the future force. Lots of exciting things that are happening literally today, that happened last week, but more importantly, that happen in the not too distant future. And I won't spend any more minutes on the broadcast now rattling off the long list of just really phenomenal stuff and capability we are delivering to the warfighter in a system of systems approach that can actually be employed in combat at scale in the not too distant future. And I think that's an important thing that you need to know. We are not just doing one-off experiments and doing little tech demos. Overwhelmingly what we're doing and what we're proving and what we're developing here is relatively quickly going to be available for employment at scale in a networked capability to hold a bunch of targets at risk from a bunch of shooters 365 days a year. And that's an important thing that you are all contributing to as you participate in the mission here at Edwards or anywhere else in the test and evaluation enterprise. Thank you for that. Thank you for fighting in those four. And there it is. It's kind of my get off the stage chart. It's an open house. It does include an air show, but it's a lot more than that. It's a big open house. It is also a STEM expo targeted at kids all ages, but primarily 3 to 13. The Thunderbirds are going to be here. Many of you may not know this, but Thunderbird 1 right now is a TPS grad.
Nice.
Astro Elliott, and he's a great guy. So he's bringing the team out from Nellis for that air show, and he has his class actually trivial history here. His class has one of the best graduation videos from TPS that I've ever seen, and so we can look at him then and look at him now. Oh my, how they grow up! It'll be pretty cool. Anyway, so that's the air show and the dates, the open house and the dates, and we'll be hitting you with that every week. Chief, any final words for the week before we sign off?
Just wishing everybody a happy, blessed weekend, and we'll see you back next week.
All right. Everybody be safe. Enjoy your weekend. So for Chief D. Ward-Swanigan, Brigadier General Matt Higer signing off this week from Takata 2.